Hey guys, I'm Becky and welcome back to my channel. So today at Endure Finances, we're just going to be going over what the Great Resignation really is, why it's happening, and whether or not you should follow suit and quit your job. I know we've all been reading about it and hearing about it in the news for months now, that literally hundreds of thousands of people are quitting their jobs, just walking out. In August alone, more than 4.5 million people quit their jobs. Then you factor in the 11.5 million people that quit earlier this spring in just one quarter, and those numbers are staggering. Anthony Koltz, who first coined this phrase, hit it right on the head. The Great Resignation. The point where millions of people are literally voluntarily leaving their jobs because they can. But why are so many people leaving their jobs? It can't be just because of COVID and all of the repercussions that have happened across the nation of businesses shutting down and social distancing, can it? It can't be the only factor. Well, I think the answer is never simple, and there's always a multitude of layers that come piling on to contribute to this. I think a lot of people are getting fed up with stressful and unhealthy work environments where they feel undervalued and underappreciated and micromanaged by their boss. Then you factor in long commutes and low wages and low flexibility with what works with their personal life, and people have had enough. I think for some, the pandemic brought retirement a little earlier than they were originally planning. Most baby boomers are between the ages of 57 and 75 and are on the brink of retirement before COVID hit. Then a lot of them were either laid off or furloughed and took the opportunity, honestly, to just retire a couple of years early because they were already out of work, so why not? Just cut down a little bit. And we're going to see that trend with boomers continuing to leave the workforce very steadily as they're all right on the brink of it. So for the next few years, we're going to have more people leaving the workforce than we have coming into the workforce because of the boomer generation. For others, the cost of returning to work after a furlough or a layoff just simply wasn't worth it. Some quit work because they had to care for their children. Schools went to a learn-from-home setting, and preschools and daycares are honestly shutting down almost every single week because one child or a family member was potentially exposed with COVID, and they need to ensure the safety of everyone, so no one can go. And so people are literally having to make the decision of work or care for my children. Now we know that more than 161 million people in the United States make up the workforce. But did you know that a whopping 7.8% of those people work a second job? That's roughly 20 million people who are working more than one job just to make ends meet. Now this is based on data from the US Census Bureau's LEHD studies, which shows a clear and distinctive pattern with specific industries housing most of these people with a second job, namely healthcare, food service, retail-based positions. And then you look at the resignation trends, and it shows that workers in these same industries, like customer service and retail, are the ones with the highest number of workers leaving and quitting their jobs. So people in these service-oriented jobs traditionally have low wages. They work long, unconventional hours on weekends and nights and all sorts of different hours, and they have lots of face-to-face interaction with confrontational customers. And we know with COVID, people have not gotten nicer. They've gotten more aggressive and more frustrated about masking mandates, social distancing, and feeling like their rights as human beings are being violated. And they're taking that out on people in front of them that have to enforce rules that they might not agree with themselves. So those people who are working in the low-paying jobs are also the most likely to need a second job to make ends meet. So they're the highest number of people quitting, and they're the most likely person that is going to need a second job to get by. And then you take into account the fact that even if they do get a second job, those low-paying workers with a second job are still going to make less than someone who's in a higher-paying job, just one job, working full-time in one job. So two jobs are not even equaling one job at a higher wage. So I think it's pretty easy to see that there's a correlation there between low-wage earners and high resignation trends. It's no wonder to me that people are leaving these industries for higher paying jobs that are going to cover all of the needs instead of having to balance jobs. And in some states, the job outlook is a lot better than others. If you look at Alaska, Nevada, Georgia, just to mention a couple on this map, there's a lot of states that have a high resignation trend, but they also have an incredibly high number of jobs open. So the risk is a lot less when you know there's a lot of jobs open and you have more security and the ability to find a different job. Well, no matter what way you look at it, the United States is walking into a labor shortage. We don't have enough people to fill these positions. Workers are putting a higher price on their time. They're putting more emphasis on what they want to do for work and who they want to work for. It's not just about earning money and putting food on the table anymore. People want to work for a company that values them as an employee and cares about them, that also allows them to have an identity outside of the workplace. Because a lot of people are looking at their job, maybe they had to take a couple months off, they were forced to take time off, and they're like, who am I without this job? And so the power dynamic has really made a big shift from being in the employer's hand to now workforce has the power as far as job market goes, as far as job seekers. And so it leads to a lot of people questioning whether they should follow suit and whether they should quit their job. So should you quit your job? To be honest, now could be the perfect time for you to actually walk away and chase that new career path or try and go after your dream job. But I think with any big change, the first thing you need to have in place is a plan. How are you going to get there? What are you going to do if everything falls apart on your way to getting there? I would recommend writing out the pros and cons, like physically writing them out on a blackboard or on a whiteboard, notebook, paper, whatever it is. You can even take notes on your computer, but write out the pros and cons. Really evaluate and weigh the costs that you could potentially see financially from leaving your job. Especially if you're not vested in your employer's retirement fund. You could be walking away from a large chunk of money that's directly related to your ability to retire later. You also might want to consider talking to your boss. You guys might have a really good relationship, or the company might actually be financially stable enough that you could negotiate a way into a higher paying salary, or a more flexible work schedule where you can work from home remotely, even a couple days a week if that's what you want. If a company really wants to keep an employee, they're going to be open to having that line of communication, and they're going to try and find out a way to keep you because they want good employees. Before you up and leave, try and lock down a new job. Try and have a job set up and ready to walk into before you turn in your notice. So to do that, you're going to have to dust off your resume. Make sure that it's up to date with your current job, your current skill set, and take a look at the current job market. The job market is constantly fluctuating. New jobs are entering the workforce. Some jobs are taking out completely due to automation and other things. And skill sets are different now. If it's been 5-10 years, different skills are needed now. And there might be different jobs that you didn't even think of before. So make sure that you tailor your resume to what you're looking for that specific job, and you write a unique cover letter that makes you stand out in a way that catches that employer's eye. It's also good to have a budget in place and to follow that budget. Make sure that you're living inside of your means and you can afford to be unemployed even for a couple of weeks while you're in between jobs. We know that based on data, a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and so not getting paid for even a couple of weeks can really put people in a bind financially, trying to pay bills and keep the lights on. Sometimes a job hunt can take a lot longer than people are anticipating, where you thought you could walk right in, but now you've got a delay because of something on like a background check or a drug screen, and it's a month before you can get into the position. So it's really good to have an emergency fund built up that you can lean back into and not have to worry about covering those bills and expenses. And you might even consider building up a food storage supply so that you have food readily available in case something happens with containers and shipping and getting food and supplies to the local populace. So you have a double layer of security. And then it's really important to remember that if you're considering changing jobs, you're really not alone. Millions of people have left their jobs, which means millions of people are looking tentatively for a new and better job. And that means that those jobs that offer good benefits and good flexibility and have employers that are genuine and care about their employees and want them to succeed and excel are going to be highly competitive regardless of how many openings there are across the board. So if you feel like moving on is the best course of action, do it. Have a plan, have a budget, stick to it, and do what you gotta do. But always keep in mind that the grass may not be greener on the other side. Maybe it is in the short term. Maybe it's not in the long term. Maybe you find that you really have made a mistake and you want to go back to your old employer. It's important to try and not burn bridges on your way out the door. Try and give an accurate or an adequate amount of time of your resignation. 2 weeks is pretty standard in the United States, so try and give that to them and not just walk out 5 minutes before Friday ends and say peace, because they might blacklist you. You might be put on a do not hire list for them and you won't be able to get back into that company if in the future you want to. So trust your gut, have a plan, and remember to always just follow your heart. It's probably taking you in the right direction. So good luck out there, guys. I hope you get the job that you want, or you're happy with the job that you have.